besties.
Welcome back. Hope y'all are having a great February.
Happy February.
I hope it's not crazy cold where y'all are.
Yeah.
But it probably is. So
I saw a TikTok video saying, like, this girl was like, it's so cold in Canada, and she took like boiling water and I was like, no
and like tossed
way.
it out.
It froze in the air. I was like, no way.
Yeah, people, I kind of love watching those TikToks though because it's kind of satisfying.
I know.
But I'm also like, man, that's cold.
That's cold.
Yeah,
I can't do
it's
it.
getting cold here in New York. But there's been some like rainy, like sleety days, like not snow, but like just kind of that miserable.
It's been weird.
Vibe. Yeah.
I'll say that.
It's also post-Christmas, which is like, I like when it's cold at Christmas, but
I know.
I'm like, now we're done. Like it can be spring now, but
yeah.
Anyways, well, guys, as I was just saying, we've mentioned this before, but we both are in New York City.
Yes.
That's how we met. That's where we're both located. That's what we're doing and trying to vibe with and figure out our lives here. But one of the cool things about living in New York is that there are so many opportunities to do book related things.
Yeah.
Unlike really anywhere else I've ever lived. Or even like I hear people talk about, they're like, oh, I wish I lived there, because there's just so many amazing things. There's so many amazing bookstores. There's a lot of events. There's just a lot of ways to connect with other readers.
Yeah.
So I figured we would just like have kind of a fun conversation back and forth with our different experiences, some of our favorite places to go and read or go and shop. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of wanted to start it off asking you, Kaitlin, like, what would you say your favorite bookstore in New York is?
I went to school at a musical conservatory.
I was like, do you know where you
I
went
don't
to
know
school?
where I went to school. And it was in Upper West Side, so I would go to a few different ones. Mm-hmm. You love this store, but the Strand, who is one of the biggest bookstores in New York City, has a huge history downtown, but they have a smaller version of the Strand by the American Museum of Natural History.
Right.
It's 2 stories. It's really cute. So I would go there a lot, and I would go to the 3-story Barnes & Noble in Upper West Side as well.
Yeah. I had a very similar experience with where my bookstores were based on where I went to school. So I went to school down in like Union Square area. So my bookstores that I frequented were the Big Strand and the 4-story Barnes & Noble, just because that was, again, like where I was kind of located. I think it's really interesting that we have kind of they may not necessarily be our favorites, but like those were the ones that we would go to for book shopping or just because it was like convenient. And then they both happen to be like the Strand is a very famous bookstore. I did not even realize that they had a second location until I remember this so vividly. We were talking about Happy Place, or we were talking about Emily Henry books. Yeah. And you sent me a photo saying, oh, I found this at Strand. But the bottom, the table, like that the book was placed on, it was like white. And I was like, that's not Strand, babe. Like, there's no white tables at Strand. Like, I know Strand, and I'm telling you right now, everything is on like wooden tables. Like, and you were like, no, I'm at Strand, because I was like, what do you mean you're at Strand?
Right.
And I didn't even realize that you were at the smaller location. But it is really cool that they have now. They also have a location in LaGuardia Airport.
The Strand?
Yeah, it's like a small little location.
Cute. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I fly out of LaGuardia whenever I fly. That's where I fly out of. Okay. And one time I got through security really fast, and so I had like an hour and a half to chill. I get so stressed about flights, by the way, that like I'm like a hurry up and wait girl for flights.
Yeah,
like I will
like
get there
too.
Super early. I would rather just get in.
Exactly.
But
I've never been to LaGuardia.
It's my favorite.
I also don't know.
They kind of redid a lot of it, so it's a lot nicer.
Pictures.
Yeah, but also I live really close to LaGuardia, so it's really convenient for me. But yeah, I got there super early, and I was just able to chill and kind of mill around. And there was a location. I was like, "What? This is so
that's really cool." Well, can you kind of tell everybody who don't live in New York City, like the history of the Strand and like downtown?
Yeah, from what I understand, that area, so the Union Square area to like 15th, 16th, 17th Street, around like 5th Avenue, 6th Avenue, apparently that used to be like the book area of New York. Yeah. There were all these bookstores, all these independent, before Barnes existed, all these independent bookstores, and they all just kind of died out. But Strand stayed strong. Like, it lasted. And
was it 3 miles long?
It's not, well, they say it's like 18 miles of books or something like that, which is absolutely crazy.
I said 3.
Apparently it's like, they claim it's like 18 miles of books, but yeah, like there's like little history, like pictures up on the walls at Strand. And so from the bits and pieces I've gathered, it's that it used to be a part of a much bigger book area, and everything else just kind of sadly, you know, got replaced by other stores, other things. Buildings were redone, all of that kind of stuff. New York is constantly evolving. But Strand, it remained. And I think it's really interesting that they did build that Barnes like 2 streets over. Just because, again, that's like that is the biggest Barnes in the world. So if
you're coming to New York City, definitely, like, and you don't have a lot of time, but you want to, like, if you're out of the country and you want to, like, go to American bookstores in New York, definitely hit up the Strand and Barnes & Noble. Like, those are the biggest ones anyway, and they're so close to each other.
It's amazing. I mean, the amount of times that I go to both, or like I'll start at the Strand because I'm like, oh, let me see if I can find this book as a used book. Maybe it'll be cheaper. Right. And then maybe they don't have it. So I'm like, oh, I'll go hit up Strand. Books, dude. Yeah. I will say they are a little bit picky about what books they do take, but you can do, so Strand, let me clarify, you can sell your books to Strand. Right. But they do kind of go through them, and they don't just take everything, which is fair. I mean, if they took every book, and, you know, they have to make a profit off of it. So they are selective about what books they take. But you can also then, if they don't take them, you can donate them. And those are the books that end up on the outside of the store. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, because every time I've gone to sell books, sometimes they won't take maybe 2 or 3. And they're like, well, and I'm like, well, I want to get rid of them anyways. So I'll just like donate them. And then people, because, you know, I've still found some great reads from the outside section of Strand. But yeah, so if you're going to hit up these spots, and you only have like a day and you want to kind of, you know, get all the book areas, definitely the Barnes, because if you've never like experienced that, I mean, like, it's such a cool place to walk into. It's just, it's kind of magical. Yeah. But the same experience is with Strand. You kind of walk in and you're like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, like, you don't even know crazy. What to do. They have how many floors?
It's 3 floors in Strand, 4 floors in Barnes.
Yes. Yeah. So at the Strand, I remember the very first time I went there, I brought my friends from California, and we were like, let's just walk over to the Strand. And guys, like, when Sophia's talking about books that are outside, there are carts and carts.
A whole street. It's absolutely, or like an avenue. Isn't it like a whole avenue?
I think so. It's crazy. I mean, it's all the way down. And like, you could probably spend about an hour. Yeah. Even if more, just like going through that. And then that's not even inside. So then you go inside and they obviously, I mean, if you go on a weekend, wild. I've been on a week.
If you can go on a weekday, go for it. If you're only there for a week, and still go. Yes. Like, definitely still go.
But they also have, like, I remember I went there and I couldn't even get through the first floor because there were so many things to look at. So they have, like, the cashier, like, on the wall. It's just like they're books, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, it's decorated beautifully, and then they have like they have stationery stuff, and then you go upstairs.
And then, well, don't forget the entire tote bag section. Right. Yeah, they literally have just like a huge section that's just tote bags. It's incredible.
Yeah, like, I don't know if I could leave.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. Yeah. And then the thing is, what's kind of funny is that their fantasy section is like on the first floor, but like totally around the corner. You kind of have to weave through a little bit.
That's why I couldn't find it.
Yeah, so you got to go all the way through. But once you're back there, it's a little bit emptier. Like, just because people don't, because you're right, it's so full that sometimes people don't even make it through the initial section.
Exactly.
So you do just kind of have to like maneuver your way through. But it's so great. And then you have to check out the basement. I've
never been in the basement.
The basement is great. It's they have like a music section down there, which is fun. It's none of it's really fiction though. That kind of gets into more like the nonfiction books, but it's still a vibe. Like, you still want to go down there and just like look around.
Dude, in the spring we have to do a book crawl.
And, like, for sure.
Look at more books.
And then the third floor is children's books and YA. Yes, and like cooking books or whatever, which the cooking books are fun to like. The cookbooks.
Cooking books.
Cookbooks. That's a fun vibe up there too. So the Strand is like, you definitely have to hit that spot. But if you want to go even more downtown, there is a special bookstore that is called the Rip Bodice. And I've never actually been, but it's a goal of mine to hit that up.
Yeah.
But I believe it just specializes in fantasy, or not fantasy, romance, which I think includes romantasy books.
Yeah.
When I saw somebody go, and apparently they have candles that are supposed to smell like certain characters.
Bro, that's hilarious.
And somebody
we have
bought,
to go.
Yeah, somebody bought a Dorian candle. From Throne of Glass. I thought that was so, and they have Rhysand, they have like all of the,
how cute.
Yeah, so I really want to go, but that's like a little bit more downtown, so you'd probably have to take a train, but it's close enough that it's definitely doable on the same day.
They have a location in LA, so this was their second location.
Okay.
And I mean, like, yeah, if you're more of like, you want a fun experience, like, you know, there's still a smaller bookstore, so you might not find what, you know, maybe a mass bookstore has, like Barnes & Noble or something, but like the experience of like being, I think they also have events, book club events, and then they have authors who are indie authors, women and non-binary authors, which I think, I'm like, yo, that's really cool.
They do a lot of like inclusive stuff. Now, I was gonna say, kind of going along with the vibe, like you were saying, Rip Bodice, you may not find a book that you like actively want to buy, but it's all about the vibe
experience.
And I was gonna say, if you want even more of a vibe, there are a couple like bars / like kind of, I think they're coffee shops during the day, and they kind of transition into more of a not nightclub, but you know, it's like more a vibey vibe. One is called literally Book Club, and it is it's on First Ave and like Tribeca area-ish. Okay. Kind of down in that area. Cool. And that I actually went to back when it was I didn't even know, I was, you know, reading books and stuff, but I didn't really realize that it was like a cool spot to hit up. I just wanted to go meet a friend, and I just sat there, but they actually sell books too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And again, their selection is not big, but they do have books for sale. So you can like, they encourage you to pick a book off the shelf and read it, but they obviously ask that you treat it gently.
Oh, nice.
I think the hope is that you get into the book while you're chilling, and then you end up buying it and leaving.
I love that.
And then another place that you and I almost went to, but we didn't because we were both not feeling great, is this place called the Buttery Bar. And it's in, I think they have 2 locations. I think one is in Brooklyn and one is like downtown in Manhattan. And they do a lot of book-themed trivia nights. So, like, you and I almost went to the Fourth Wing, like, trivia night. They do Throne of Glass. They do ACOTAR. They do, they have midnight release parties.
It's a bar?
It is a bar.
Okay.
I've never been, but from the vibe that I get, they do kind of cater to the book like community. Yeah. And they did a midnight release for Iron Flame. They're doing a midnight release for CC3, which was a couple weeks ago. I did not go to that. I actually went to the one at Barnes & Noble. Yeah. But they do like, it's like their book community, you know, kind of like the vibe. But yeah, there's a lot of things, especially in Lower Manhattan. Cool. I also wanted to shout out, if you're also looking for another like vibey book place, there is a coffee shop in Astoria called 11 Seas. So if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, you definitely have to hit that up. But it's also, they're one of the few coffee shops in New York that I've been to that has couches. Which is insane, because usually you walk into a coffee shop in New York and it's like very limited space. Yeah. But they actually have like comfy chairs and couches. And so I've gone before just to like sit and read. Yeah. They have like a little shelf that has like books on it that you can like, you know, just pick up and read. Yeah. So again, like the vibes, you know, it's a fun time. I don't know.
So do you, outside of your apartment and commuting, because we all know Sophia reads on her commute. Yeah. Where do you like to read?
I do try to hit up coffee shops, especially during the winter. Like, you know, you just have to like, you don't want to be outside. But I've also literally just gone to Central Park just to read. I was about in the spring and the summer. It's so fun, guys. One of my funniest memories of like reading in Central Park was when I read The Bodyguard by Catherine Center last year. During the summer, I just needed an afternoon to sit. It was a weekend, and I was like, I just need to not think about anything. You know, it was one of those like stressful weeks, and I brought that book. I sat down and I finished that book in the park. Like, but it was also fun. It was a really easy read.
I just put it on Kindle.
Yeah, it's great. But I literally sat, read, and then left. Nice. It was just a vibe. Yeah. Is there any like for you specifically?
Oh, I love Central Park, Sheep's Meadow. Ooh. I love reading there. I think like spring definitely helps. It's funny, when you have a Kindle, you can kind of read anywhere. So like, if I'm by myself and just getting lunch, I will read in the restaurant. So literally, if I have food, I'm good. There's a coffee shop here in Harlem called Double Dutch.
I love Double Dutch.
And when you go to the back, there's this little porch, or like it's a little like amber lighting, so it's like a little dark, but like it's really, it's fun. So I like going there.
That's where you and I first like hung out, right?
Yeah, I forgot. I totally forgot. We were sitting outside. That's fun.
Yeah, that's a good memory. That was like literally, I think, the first time you and I actually like hung out versus just like seeing each other at church.
Side note, guys, Sophia's hilarious. Her confidence is through the roof. So I launched the college ministry at our church. Sophia makes a beeline for me. Like, she just goes, she's walking fast. She goes, "Hi, my name is Sophia. You're Kaitlin. My mom loves you." And I was like, "Hi."
I just Okay, listen, I was really trying to like be brave and make community.
You did a good job. And now we're friends.
Like, and you're I was a few months into going to Renaissance and to our church, and I was sort of trying to build up a community. And the reason I said my mom loves you is because she was watching every service online, and she kept texting me being like, "Who is this girl singing? She's amazing. Like, I love her voice." So anyways, you have a big fan, and my mother.
Yeah, we love Mama Shed.
We do. And so yes. Anyways, basically you like announced that you were trying to get all of the young people to like connect, and I was like, perfect. Yeah. This is exactly what I need.
But it was so funny because after we got coffee, I don't know, like, well, we found out in a few episodes ago in season 1 that we like realized we both love reading. Yeah. And I think like in New York, when you find somebody that reads and maybe read similar stuff to you, like there's like a very weird quick connection that you're immediately friends almost. Have you experienced that? Oh, well, that girl who was reading Fourth Wing, right?
I just have, so if I see somebody reading a book that I know, I do kind of just like go up to them and I'm like, "Hey, good book."
Yo, I'm telling you, this girl is so bold. I couldn't do that.
There was this girl in a Starbucks and she was reading Fourth Wing, and we had both ordered. I was waiting for my drink and I went up and she didn't have headphones in, so I was like, I felt like I could, and I was like, "Hey, Fourth Wing," and she was like, "Yeah, it's my first ever fantasy." And I was like, "Ooh, have fun!" Like, and so I briefly mentioned like some other books that she might be interested in if she likes Fourth Wing. And then she got her drink first, and she was like, "Hey, thanks, girl. Like, have a great day." And it was like a really fun little connection. There was another person that was reading A Court of War and Ruin, which is the third book in the ACOTAR series, and she had her headphones on, but I was walking past her. We were both waiting for the train, and I literally like kind of waved in her face, and like she looked up at me, but I kind of just like, for our listeners, I kind of just went like, I gave like the, like, not like a chef's kiss like vibe, but like the like
A-OK,
like the A-OK kind of hand motion, and I was just like, "Nice book," and I just kept walking, and she was like, "Yeah." Aww. It was fun, and I don't know, there's just kind of like, you find a connection with people, and I think that's a perk of having the physical book with you when you're reading, because then people can actually see, but of course I do bring my Kindle with me.
It's so funny, like I used to work at a job that I was going on the train every day, and I maybe had my Kindle for like 3 or 4 months. And one morning there were like on the train, I would say 10 people who had a Kindle. And I was like, "Wait, that's not a phone. What is it?" And people were just like deep into it, and I was like, "Oh, that's a book." So I feel like I do see a good amount of Kindle. I see a good amount of people on their phones, but I could tell they're reading. Or the physical book. I see I tend to see the smaller mass market
ones.
Books. I mean, that's really nice to commute with, because I couldn't take Goblet of Fire on the train.
I commuted with the entire Throne of Glass series when I first read it.
Girl.
Yeah. Well,
wait,
I didn't have
physical copies?
Yeah, I didn't have my Kindle yet. I got my Kindle for Christmas of 2023.
Okay.
Or no. 2022. Yes. I'm like trying to think backwards in time. I'm like, hold on. No, what was crazy was trying to do the tandem read commuting. That was wild. Both? Yes, I brought both. And I put one book down and pull the other one on my back, and then I would just like stack them on top of each other. It was, I wonder what people thought of me, to be honest.
You know how people have like adrenaline thrills, or like they'll like jump off in a plane, or what is it called,
like bungee jumping, or skydiving.
Your adrenaline thrill is bringing 2 books and tandem reading in public on a subway car.
And both of these books are like, I think in the 600 page range, something like that. So yeah, I just like would do one book on top of the other. And you know, I will say now I got a little crossbody bag. I think you also have one.
Yeah.
And if I'm just going to work, right, and all I need with me are my keys, my phone, you know, like the essentials, I do just bring the crossbody bag and just pop my Kindle in there.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy still reading physical books, but I find that I kind of split it half and half.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. Like, I love ebooks for that reason. Like, so say for example, I take my Kindle with me, but when I get home that night, if I own the physical book, I will read the physical book.
Yeah.
Because I still love the feeling of like a book
in
my hands. And
yeah.
I do take physical books with me on commutes too, but I just like more often recently I've kind of done the Kindle commute and then the physical book at home. That's not constant, but it's the vibe.
It was so funny on Facebook Marketplace. I saw like maybe 4 different listings for Kindles.
Yeah.
And they were new ones, and they were like, yeah, I didn't want it for Christmas because I realized I love physical books more. And I'm like, that's a mood. I get it.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's why, like, by the way, like, I have a little bit of like a feeling, a little emotion towards people that are like anti-Kindle. Because they're like, I only want to read like a physical book. I'm like, that's great. I love that for you. But why can't we have both?
Yeah. Like,
stop with the whole, like, I only read a physical book. Because I'm like, you're still reading. Also, for people that commute and read on commutes, sometimes we need something that's a little less thick. Like, I know. Like I've discovered. Or like I said with my crossbody bag. So yeah. Maybe it's just me, but I hate the argument of Kindle versus physical.
Oh, for real, yeah.
I hate it. It makes me so upset because I'm like, you're reading both, like you're still reading. Yeah. Also, like, don't invalidate people. Like, maybe they have no space in their apartment for books.
I know.
Let them read on their Kindle. Don't
and maybe
shame
they
them
want
for
a cheaper way. To buy books.
Exactly. Like we know that I have collected so many physical books. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to work on that. But I do evenly read both. And so I just like, I don't understand the war, like the argument. Why is there an argument? That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Just respect that some people want to read on Kindle, respect that some people only want to read on physical, but don't like shame the other person for reading one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really about accessibility and like, okay, so what if somebody really loves to do audiobooks? Mm-hmm. Like,
just let them. Don't fight it. Just don't. There's no reason to fight. We're all reading. You know what I mean? Like, so, but especially just like, I see so many people arguing about like, well, I only read physical books. Or then there's the people that only read on Kindle, and they're like, because everybody else is doing consumerism when you buy the physical book. So anyways, we're going way off track. But all that to say, with commuting in New York,
Sophia's like, heated.
We can just let us commute and read how we want.
Yes, anyways. I know.
Anyways,
we'll do an episode about Kindles and physical books because I feel like we have a lot to say. Yeah. But we are going into our next segment of answering your guys' questions. We don't even know what to call it yet. Again, we're still workshopping. So please, if you have any ideas, send it in because I mean, we want it to be like cute, but also like not like we want to get to it. So we have some questions from. Should we say?
Well, from various people, but mostly shout out to one of my sisters.
Yes, Isaiah.
That's your husband, babe. Not.
I caught. Whoa.
What is that?
I don't really know. Anywho, so let's. How many of these do you want to do?
I mean, I'm vibing. You can. Whatever.
Let's do a few.
Yeah.
All right. We answered that. Okay, what's your favorite Barnes & Noble or local bookstores?
Well, if I get a gift card to Barnes & Noble, that's where I'm going. You know.
Give me free money.
Yeah, basically. But there's a vibe with going into a local bookstore. You know? Yeah. It's fun to just walk in and be like, oh, there's no other place like this. You know? Yeah. Or maybe there's 1 or 2 locations. Like we've said, with like the Strand, there's just the 2. Mm-hmm. You know? I think I would... Okay, let me say it this way. I love going into a used bookstore and trying to see what like treasures I can find.
That's fun.
But if I'm going for a specific book, the likelihood that I'm going to find it at like a used local bookstore is pretty low.
Yeah.
So if I'm specifically on a hunt, like I will go to Barnes. What about you though?
Yeah. I would love to support local bookstores, and I do. I still do. At the same time, we are in a recession in New York City, and sometimes I have to bargain. Like if it's with myself, if it's a local bookstore and they want to sell a book for $20, and then I go on Amazon on my phone.
Amazon is another
Amazon's a really
option.
good place,
right?
And it's cheaper.
Yeah.
I'll just like for budget purposes, I will probably go cheaper. But if I'm like, recently I went to Georgetown and I found this really tiny bookstore, and they had like a very small amount of fantasy, and it was all SJM.
Wow.
And I was like, well, like I was trying to find a book that I could just support it. So like I love to go to other towns, but if like for the most part, I also just like walking around a big bookstore and like just, like I know all my authors are here. I know sci-fi's here. So like I would say both. If I were to choose one, I would go to Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. Like I said, it's also just whether you're on the hunt or whether you're just kind of book like browsing, right? Yeah. I would definitely say that's like the vibe. What else do you want to throw at me?
Have you ever read a book that was really good but had a disappointing ending?
I mean, I'm going to say yes, but nothing's like popping to the front of my mind right now. If you have one in mind, let me know.
I mentioned this book in the last episode. It's Never by Jessa Hastings. Again, I love a Peter Pan retelling. I think that's one of my favorite, I guess, fantasy. I guess like old folklore fantasy. Yeah. It was actually really good until I hit the last quarter of the book. And I was like, what? And I think I was talking about it for like 2 days. I told Sophia, I was like, oh man, like I just, like it, it's unsatisfying. Yeah, it is. I would rather you rip out my heart or just end the book. Don't just leave me somewhere. And I'm like, well, what was that?
Yeah. I think I'm looking back at some of the books that I've read, and I mean, this is a book that overall I did not like in general, but I would have said it's a good book and I can see why people do like it, and that is The Silent Patient, which is a thriller. I can see where people who do love thrillers like that book, so I would say it's a good book, like but the ending especially, I was just like nah, like I don't like that. But it's funny because I feel like for the most part I can tell where a book is going downhill,
I can too.
So there's a certain point in a book where I'll be like, yeah, no, I wasn't doing this, but it's starting to not, be it for me. So very rarely do I read a book where I'm like 80% through and loving it, and then the ending is just like absolutely not. For the most part, around probably like the 50% mark, I'm like,
interesting.
I might finish the book, but
have you DNF'd?
I have DNF books where I get to that point, but it really has to be going way downhill for me, where I'm like, yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that we were talking about bookstores in New York City, this question is, could you see yourself opening a small bookstore in the city? Sophia and I have talked about this before.
I think definitely if we did like a dual situation. I don't know personally if I have like the marketing and business like expertise to physically open a like business. It'd be fun. I mean, it'd be fun. It'd be cute. But like I don't have like any immediate plans of being like, I'm going to open a bookstore. I just feel like there's a whole side of it that's very very business mindset that I just don't have. So I'd have to go in with somebody that knows that world versus like I know the book world, but like I would need a partner that would be the business side,
Yeah, I would love to open that up. I see a lot of like in smaller towns across the US, they're like opening smaller bookstores. They sell like Kindle covers, and I mean, I feel like that like fun, kind of like you're a kid again. I want that feeling as an adult in a bookstore, and I don't think I've yet to find one, specifically one that I like. I would maybe also me and Tatum have talked about like, hey, if I open like part of a bookstore, maybe you could have the bakery side, because she's so good at it. And then she's like, oh, and then we could do like an open mic, and I'm like, yes, this is so cool. But of course, dreams. Those are dreams.
That'd be fun. It would be really cute. I have a funny one, which is, what is the worst book that we read last year?
Can you guys guess mine? I will say it again. Let's say it together. 1, 2, 3. People we meet on vacation.
Yeah.
Boo.
I mean, I get it. It's not it's my least favorite of Emily Henry's books, but it wasn't the worst book I read last year. A book that I read and then like immediately redonated was a book called The Last Girl on Earth.
Oh, dark.
And it wasn't. That's the whole point, is that it was basically, it was a dystopian / like sci-fi future YA novel where basically aliens who kind of almost look like humans, but like they're aliens, came to Earth because Earth was dying because humans like, you know, messed up the Earth. And they took over, and basically all the humans died out except for this one girl. But of course she's like 16, and so she's like, but like this like alien family decides to like adopt her, but they have to hide the fact that she's a human. And like basically it took every single like trope for a YA fantasy dystopian sci-fi, like, you know, like all the tropes, right, and smashed it together into like a 250-page book. And it was bad. Like, it was just so cringy. Like,
you lost me at Alien Family.
Yeah, well, so. You know, I thought it would be like a cool, like, dystopian, and it was just so cringy. Like, was so cringy. I literally redonated it, like, probably the next week, like, later. So that was just, rough. Like, a read that I was like, why did I get this? But I got it from a thrift store for, like, $2. And I was like, oh, the premise sounds good. No. So.
That's rough.
I don't know why I read that, you know.
We have a really good question from Carter Watts. She asks, how do you navigate reading the romance genre as a Christian?
First of all, let's clarify that there's so many genres in the romance world. Romance does not just mean like, wow, it's spicy. Like, I kind of think of it also as like watching a rom-com. Like, there are so many like amazing movies that are romance movies, but they're so good. And like, I think everybody can agree with that, where there's romance movies where it's like, okay, now we're just watching something that I don't want to be watching, you know?
Yeah.
I definitely try to lean towards like closed door romance,
Me too.
As it were, you know? But I have read some books, like, being totally honest, where there are some scenes, you know, where like something's happening, but I do truly just like skim. Like, we were talking, I think last episode about, you know, like, do you skim a book? Do you read a book? When I see a scene coming up, I just skim because it doesn't affect the plot line. You know, I'm kind of like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I truly can just skim and be like, okay, now that scene's done, and I can move back to the story. And the only reason that I am okay with it is because like I'm not okay with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't read every single word. I don't, you know, picture the scene. But if the story is so good, like, I'm willing to just skim and move on. Yeah. And I know that is definitely according to like your conviction level as well. But for me, I'm just I'm okay personally, and like I feel like it's okay for me to just to skim and move on.
I think as women, we just generally like stories anyway. Like, a lot of books are marketed for women, and a lot of romance is huge for women. I don't know many guys who are picking up like cute girly rom-com books. I don't. So I think it is partially discernment, and I also think like what I do is I have to actually look up the spice level, because I don't want my mind to go there. I think I have to be very picky of, you know, closed door, guys. If you don't know, there's open door where you see everything and you hear everything and all the descriptions, and then you have the closed door where there's an implication that something happened and then it's kind of over. So like there are authors that are like that, and you know, maybe you get that they get slack for it, maybe, but maybe they also don't. So I feel like those authors are, I mean, I'll go to them, but again, if it's part of the story, I will skim as well. Like, you can kind of tell when it's going somewhere, and then you can like, you know, kind of figure out like in Book Lovers there's a scene.
Like 2 scenes, and what's funny is I annotated that book for my sister, but it was because I wanted her to read it so bad, and that book's one of my 6 stars, and so when I was like annotating it, I wrote like, spicy scene coming up, feel free to skip, like, and it was kind of just this funny, like, I feel like it's okay to not take it too seriously, especially if you're loving the story. Just skim and move on. Like, so many of these books that are so well written and books that I love, and I love the stories and I love the characters, like, there is some stuff in them, but I'm like, I'm personally willing to just move on. But I can completely understand and honor the fact that some people just can't do that because it may be something that they've, you know, maybe struggled with in the past, or there's just things that, like, you know, like they just don't want to get into. And so I think that there's so many other amazing books out there that have no spice, that are completely closed door.
There's some actually, like, kind of scary spicy, like, I mean, this is all I heard, that there were 3 demons and a girl. And I'm like, first of all,
never in a million years.
I don't want to read anything remotely demon-esque.
No.
Not at all. But, like, also that's scary to me. So, like, but there's a huge,
there's like, a whole, well, let's
there's
be honest.
A whole thing of,
there's a whole audience out there. There's a whole genre out there that's, like, dark romance.
Yeah.
And so I will never touch that in a million years. I'm not even interested in that, like, ever. So it is a little bit of conviction level, and also, like, just knowing where you're at with kind of approaching that kind of content. But I understand why a lot of people may not want to even, like, go there. And I completely respect that. And, you know, I kind of wish there were versions of the books where it's like, oh, it just cuts out and move on to the rest of the story. But it's just, I would definitely say it's personal conviction level. Something I've had to, like, really think through and process and kind of come to my own, like, conclusion on it.
I think that's good.
And but definitely, like, if you are a Christian or somebody that doesn't want to read anything remotely, like, spicy in that sense, like, there are some amazing books out there, and, like, I would love to give some recommendations. You can always reach out. But
I mean, also another thing, like, if you're interested in a book, definitely, like, Google spice level in this book. Like, I'm sure there's TikTok videos, YouTube videos, like, just if you can't wait and you're like, I need to know, check out all the other books the author has done. So maybe you can kind of get better view
I will just throw out really quickly one author that I think does closed door so well, and that is Kaitlin Center. Every book so far, I mean, I don't know all her books, but every book I've read of hers so far has been closed door. So if you really just seriously are looking for good stories but completely closed door, at least The Bodyguard and what was
I'm about to read The Bodyguard. I'm excited.
I can't remember the other names of her books, but for right now, The Bodyguard is a great closed door, great little romance rom-com situation.
Fun.
There's, like I said, there's a lot of good options out there, but it's also just kind of, you have
up to your discretion.
For sure.
That was a great question.
Thanks, was Carter. A little more in depth, but, you know, it's a really, really good way to process that whole, you know.
Well, happy February. Read a good book, and maybe you can read The Bodyguard.
I know.
Let us know what you think. Yes.
All right, you guys, thanks for listening.
See you later.
Bye.